Good morning, everybody. Welcome on in to another Sunrise Book Club. I'm your cowboy monk. Today, we are diving into Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the big daddy of all cryptids. Because in the news, or last night on Twitter, I log on, which is the news to me. I log in, I see, hey, Bigfoot is trending. I'm like, what? I click. There is a brand spanking new sighting that rivals the Patterson-Gimlin film, and we're going to learn the history of all of that and look at the footage of the new sighting tonight, or this morning, I should say. We're going to be reading from Unexplained, Cryptozoology A to Z, and of course, North American Monsters, the field guide to North American monsters. We're going to be reading about Bigfoot in all three and then comparing the stories, comparing the tales. As you know, we've read about Bigfoot's cousins in all these, the three-toed variety. We've read about skunk ape and yeti, but it's time to tackle the big papa of the Pacific Northwest, the granddaddy that started the cryptid craze back in the 40s and 50s, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. Before we get into that, we got to get into the wasteland in the Appalachians, though. So let's get that going. And again, welcome in, everybody. Very exciting stuff. Oh my gosh, that's what I wanted to talk about. Very exciting stuff. The brand new sighting that recently happened in Colorado by a couple on a train.
Like Bigfoot walking around southern Colorado. Take a look and see what you think. A couple shared this video on social media saying they spotted Bigfoot while riding the Durango and Silverton narrow gauge railroad train. They told Out There Colorado most people on the train didn't notice anything. Over the years, there have been more than 100 reported Bigfoot sightings in Colorado.
Now, as you can see in that footage, the creature kind of walks around for a little bit and then ducks down like it's a bush. Now, what I thought was interesting about that is I feel that it was showing like a really good way that it could camouflage itself, because when that thing ducks down into the other bushes that are in the distance, at least on the video, it makes it so hard to see, which kind of goes to our point when we read and talk about Bigfoot, about how easy it is for it to disappear and melt away in the woods, right? It can kind of just like pops in and out of existence in a way. Or at least that's what it seems like. And this video shows how it kind of just melts right back into the bushes, which I think is interesting. So that is the new sighting that just occurred out in Colorado from a train, apparently. Now, seems pretty legit to me. I mean, it could definitely be. As I was watching, I was like, as always, I'm going to learn about some of the hoaxers in the history of Sasquatch today. As always, there's always hoaxers. There's always someone who could have been waiting for the train to come by, planned this all out, knew it was going to explode, had people on the train to like point it out and everything. We can get real elaborate with it. Or maybe this family caught a glimpse of the creature known as Bigfoot. Now, whether Bigfoot is terrestrial of origin, extraterrestrial of origin, interdimensional, or from inner Earth, who knows? I like to speculate that Bigfoot is a interdimensional traveler, and that's what gives him the ability to pop in and out of existence. And it's like a pure nature spirit in that way. Still an entity, still like an in-between entity of like, physical form and maybe an entity from one of the other, like, more spiritual reality or dimension. But I do think it's an interdimensional traveler, a peaceful one. Now, but that's just my freaking wicked 2 cents, so don't even worry about it. We're going to get into what some actual cryptozoologists and scientists think about Bigfoot, so let's dive in. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So welcome everybody to this edition of Cryptid Tales. Now, as you can see in my awesome little animation intro there, that is the Patterson-Gimlin film. of Bigfoot. You know, we can compare it to the film we just recently watched, right? It's kind of similar in the way the Bigfoot moves. It does this. The Bigfoot both do get out of there pretty quick once they realize they're being watched. Or, I don't like to say it like that. I think Bigfoot knows when it's being watched, especially when it's out in nature. This thing has to have incredible senses if it's able to evade us for so long, if it's been able to evade us for just so long. So I feel like it would have incredible senses and be able to evade us. So both sightings there, that's a creature letting us see it, letting its presence be known for reasons unknown. So that's that's just my 2 cents. But welcome in to the beautiful virtual Appalachias. We got smoke billowing out of the nuclear power plant today, which is always a good sign. And we are out here in Fallout 76, which is always a great place to read these stories about the paranormal.
Attention,
because sometimes
citizens.
A Mothman
Nuclear
visits your house.
strike imminent.
That's not always pleasant,
Please
but it's always
exit
fun.
the area
Now,
at
as
your
I'm
earliest
reading about
convenience.
Bigfoot this morning, if
Thank you for your
a
cooperation.
story pops into your head that's an old family tale or an encounter you've had with a Bigfoot, an alien, a ghost, or anything paranormal or weird that you want to chat about, please let me know. Because as always,
we're ready to believe you.
I'm here for you. I want to hear those stories. So let's dive in. Oh, and happy holidays, everybody. The Ween is in town and we got to decorate, so check out my coffins, the witch that flew into the have a great day sign. Oh my gosh, we got choppers circling today. Whoa, very cool. Oh, we got a loot box right overhead, so that might, hopefully that brings some action. Excellent. But welcome in, folks. Welcome in. Oh, and look at that, the smoke billowing behind our scarecrow. We got choppers overhead. Things are beautiful. Of course, I'm going to turn down the game volume a little bit as we dive into the world of the unknown. So bear with me here. I know that is loud. I wonder if you could even hear me in the beginning. Goodness gracious. But welcome in. Hope that's a little better. If the background noise is too much, let me know. We could always turn that there down just a little bit more. Bigfoot. We're starting with my favorite field guide. Do we save? Yeah, we're going to save this one for last because this is the most fun ride, you know? This guy, he puts it all in the book. These other two dudes, I mean, they're all right. They're great. It's great facts, but it's not... They don't have any of the fun Bigfoot facts, you know? So we're going to start with the hardcore, the guy, Mr. Loren Coleman, famous hardcore cryptozoologist, and Jerome Clark, who wrote our other book here, Unexplained. But we're going to start with old Loren Coleman, big dog, serious cryptozoologist, and his take on the Sasquatch phenomena and the history of the creature. This is in his book, Cryptozoology A to Z. He wrote it with our boy, Jerome Clark, who is a master at writing weird encyclopedias. We have a couple of his books. Also, if you have any good book recommendations for new research on Bigfoot, I would love it. But let's find the page here, huh? Hope everyone's having a great October, honestly. Bigfoot, the big dog, the granddaddy. Bigfoot is unquestionably North America's biggest cryptozoological mystery. But we have had to learn to share it with the world. The name Bigfoot is applied to any hairy unknown hominid reported today anywhere around the globe. Pff, amateurs. For our purposes, however, Bigfoot denotes those unknown hairy hominids reported in the Pacific Northwest of the United States and believed to leave large human-like footprints and walk upright. Like, this is not the guy who's going to bring up Bigfoot being interdimensional. I don't know if any of these authors do. But it was not always so. Even in North America, the Canadian version of Bigfoot, called Sasquatch, has an even longer history, according to researchers John Green and Ivan T. Sanderson. This Indian-sounding word was coined in the 1920s by J.W. Burns, a teacher who for years collected stories about wild, hairy giants from his Chilhalis Indian friends. Burns combined several similar native Canadian names for these creatures and created the word Sasquatch. So there you go. Interesting factoid that I didn't know. And honestly, it rocks my world every time I learn it, because I always just assumed that Sasquatch was the legit Native American name or Native Canadian name for Bigfoot, but it's not. That's just a name some dude, J.W. Burns, made up. But cool. I do like that he did his research and combined names of like the local dialects, because several different peoples saw the creature. So it does make sense to do it that way. I'm not knocking it. It's just like, oh, that's interesting. It's just like with the Yeti. Remember with the Yeti, the dudes who heard stories of the Yeti, they heard several different names, because there's several different types of Yeti, all different sizes. They all have different names, different habitats, the way they act, whatever, all in the Himalayas. And the dudes who were listening to the story were just like, oh, so they're all Yeti. And they heard abominable snowman, when really the term was more of just like unknown being. So interesting. So it happens. But at least in this case, it was well researched, hopefully. In recent years, scientists and folklorists looking to bring respectability to the subject have been using that more sober-sounding name. But most North Americans still call these creatures Bigfoot. The first use of the now widely used label did not occur until a quiet, church-going construction worker named Jerry Crew appeared at a Northern California newspaper office with the plaster cast of one of many large hominid footprints that he found in the mud in the Bluff Creek Valley. Enter the infamous Bluff Creek. Also, interesting, this book throws in the detail. Church-going construction workers. Just, he would never trick us, okay? His widely reprinted account and photo of holding the massive foot cast, which stretched across his upper torso, first appeared in the Humboldt Times, along with the word Bigfoot, on October 5th, 1958. The story was written by the paper's RFD columnist and editor, Andrew Gonzoli, who introduced the word Bigfoot, as the road construction workers were calling this big-footed creature to the outside world. Interesting. So that's how it starts. Construction workers would see this creature or see the tracks, road construction workers, and that makes perfect sense, because they're out there building roads where there are none. So magical creatures be out there before human influence. Anywho, they're building the roads, right? And they've been seeing these footprints or seeing this creature, and they've been calling it Bigfoot. So it's in the scientist that introduces that nickname for it to the world. Bless the construction workers. All right. The naming of Bigfoot was a significant cultural event. To deny this would be to ignore how intrinsic Bigfoot has become in global day-to-day living, as evidenced in sources of examples. Today, Bigfoot can be seen used as a name for skateboards, pizza, big trucks, and other commercial products. What is the Bigfoot pizza? I wanted some of that. Since the advent of Bigfoot, the word has made it easier for law enforcement officers, media reporters, and the general public to accept sightings of all kinds of unknown hairy hominoids. In this book, he uses the word hominoids to describe other hairy beings, or all hairy beings, Sasquatch included. Bigfoot is bulky and stocky with an enormous burl torso and a height, when mature, of 6 to 9 feet. The creature has a small pointed head with no neck or forehead. Its eyes are small, round, and dark, and stare forward. The face is light and young, dark and older individuals, with a heavy brow bridge and a continuous upcurled fringe of hair on the brow ridge. The hair covering is shaggy. There is no difference between body and head hair. All of it is relatively short, with darker colored hair at younger ages moving into red browns, with some evidence of silver at extreme maturity. The distinctive footprint, as the name implies, shows a track as left by a giant five-toed human foot. The average length is 14 to 16 inches long. When the first Bigfoot incidents noted above occurred in October of 1958, the massive tracks in the mud near Bluff Creek, California, all measured 16 inches long and were 7 inches wide. I should say the first Western or first reported Bigfoot incidences. Because if it was happening in 1958, that means it was happening before. Bigfoot is generally nocturnal and mostly solitary, although sightings have reported family groups. From their calls, it appears that they have no language. They emit high-pitched whistles, calls, and animal-like screams, howls, eeks and ugh ugh. According to Sanderson and other chroniclers, the creatures may on occasion kidnap human females, and at least according to some folk tradition, men as well. Californian and Canadian Indians have many folk tales that arguably refer to Bigfoot and Sasquatch. Sanderson believed that the description of the California hairy big man, Oma, closely matches those of Bigfoot. Oma out in California? What up, Oma? Oma's out here in my woods. I do not want to meet you, or maybe I do. Peaceful, we could hang out. You could teach me the way of the wood. One of the most often told, most spectacular accounts is Albert Osman's. Osman, a British Columbia man, came forward in 1957 to account an incident that he said had taken place in 1924 while on a prospecting trip, classic, at the head of the Toba Inlet, opposite Vancouver Island. He was gathered up one night inside of his sleeping bag and after many miles dumped out to discover that he was the captive of a family of adult male and female, juvenile male, and a female of giant ape-like creatures. Though they were friendly, they clearly did not want him to escape from their canyon home. And he managed to do so only after 6 days, when the older male choked on Osman's snuffed tobacco. Those who interviewed Osman did not doubt his sincerity or sanity, and the Sasquatch investigator Green, biologist Sanderson, and Smithsonian anthropologist John Napier all separately wrote that his account was convincing and did not sound false. Late in the 1950s, Sanderson wrote 2 articles for Argosy, a men's adventure magazine, calling Bigfoot America's abominable snowman. He caught the American imagination, and hundreds of people wrote him for more details. Sanderson followed up with his abominable snowman, Legends Come to Life, in 1961, the first book to discuss Bigfoot, Sasquatch in any comprehensive manner. Now that is a rarity. That's a rare book I need. How many printings did they do that book? I need that in my collection. That'd be great for us to read the origins of legend. The first book to discuss Bigfoot and Sasquatch in a comprehensive manner and link the North American reports with worldwide traditions of other hairy hominoids such as Almas and Yeti. And again, I don't mean it was like this book was the first of the legends. I mean this book collected them so then I could read them. It makes it easier for me to track that kind of stuff down. Got to have it all in one place. So among those who went looking for Bigfoot after they read the first Argosy article was Roger Patterson, a rodeo rider, yeehaw, and author of Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist? 1966. Patterson's searching paid off, and he, along with companion Bob Gimlin, filmed the now famous Patterson film of a large female Bigfoot on October 20th, 1967. There you have it, folks. The Patterson Gimlin film. That little, in my cute little intro, that is a clip of the Patterson Gimlin film. I'll play a little bit of it more right now. So that is the infamous clip that really kicked off a wild storm of a Bigfoot frenzy here in America and around the world. People say the film was fake or hoaxed. There definitely is some. I mean, you could put weight to that because these guys definitely had a stake in the game, right? They definitely had some nuggets in the basket. One of them had just written a book about Bigfoot, so he could be out there trying to sell his book. Or we could go with the more optimistic, the more positive, which I like to lean towards, was yeah, of course, this guy, I mean, this guy just succeeded at his mission. He was out there looking for a Bigfoot. He had been searching for Bigfoot. So he goes to an area where Bigfoot had been sighted often, and he gets a sighting. Oh, why can't that be the story? Why's it got to be a hoax? But I mean, hey, who knows? We can never know. I like to lean more towards honesty. So I believe that Patterson and Gimlin saw something and filmed something. But let's get into it. Patterson died in 1972, swearing to the authenticity of both sighting and film. Gimlin, still alive, also sticks by the story. I think he's passed away recently. The first investigator on the site, Bob Titmus, found tracks corresponding exactly to the creature's route as depicted in the film and made casts of 10 of them. Actually, let's look that up right now. We have the power of information. It's the information age. Is Gimlin still alive? All right, well, let's just start from the top of this article. And this article, again, is Bob Gimlin explains why releasing his Bigfoot footage was one big mistake he wished he could undo. It lasts only 59.5 seconds, but the Patterson-Gimlin film was one of the world's most infamous and heavily scrutinized works ever produced. The year was 1967, and two cowboys from Washington's Apple County were deep in the forest of Northern California in search of a large, hairy, bipedal humanoid known as Bigfoot. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin had read headlines of unidentifiable footprints and were navigating Bluff Creek on horseback when with a 16 millimeter Kodak camera. The search paid off when the pair discovered a gorilla-human hybrid walking along the creek bed just 30 meters in front of where they stood. Patterson disembarked from his horse, scurrying along the uneven terrain as he attempted to film the beast in the wild. Steadying himself, the explorer managed to focus the camera on the strange creature just long enough to capture footage of it returning to the dark forest. The film was quickly airmailed back home and developed, which followed with Gimlin, Patterson, and his brother-in-law, Al Diatley, taking the film on a national tour. All three men took equal shares in the film and hoped to raise funds for a full-fledged expedition back to where the footage was captured. However, soon after the collective hit the road, Gimlin sold his share of the rights for the film for less than $10 to another Bigfoot researcher. Oh no, drama! Almost 5 decades have passed since the footage was captured and has faced heavy scrutiny from skeptical scientists, forensic analysts, and special effects experts. Interesting. So at least that's like, oh, I was afraid I would read this article and it'd be like, Gimlin admits it's all a hoax. So it was just like bamboozlery. The dude sold. Why would you sell your shares for so cheap? Let's keep reading. Almost 5 decades have passed since the footage was captured and it was faced. Sorry, we already went there. Despite the heavy attention the film is yet to be conclusively debunked. Out of the two men who witnessed Bigfoot all those years ago, Bob Gimlin is the only one still alive, as Roger Patterson died of cancer in 1972. It was 1967, and having completed 2 tours in the Korean War, Gimlin was living near the Yakima Reservation in Washington with his second wife, Judy. The then 35-year-old was driving a truck, roofing, and taming wild horses in order to make a living. Yeah! When his old rodeo friend Roger Patterson spoke to him at a service station, he said, "Let me show you something," Gimlin told Outside Online. He went over to the truck and brought out a plaster cast of a Bigfoot. Obviously excited by the prospect, Patterson asked Gimlin if he would be interested in joining him on horseback expedition in search of Bigfoot. I said, "Roger, I just don't have the time." It was in the years that followed, Patterson and Gimlin became close, riding horses through Washington's back country. During these rides, Patterson would continue to try and lure Gimlin into a search for Bigfoot, with real-life recorded testimonies of encounters and related books. The constant bombardment of material would eventually spike Gimlin's attention, with the cowboy self-publishing a book in 1966 called Do Abominable Snowmen of America Really Exist? What we just read about. The following year, Patterson told Gimlin of a road construction crew claiming to have spotted tracks deep in the Six Rivers National Forest. Despite his hesitations, Gimlin finally decided to try and track down the mythical creature, so he and Patterson drove to Northern California. I wanted to see those footprints that these people talked about, he said. The gamble would ultimately pay off when the duo captured the infamous footage of Bigfoot during that trip. Yet Gimlin wishes he had never agreed to partake in the expedition. It ruined me, he said. After Patterson's death in 1972, Gimlin was the only living connection to the footage, which made him the sole target for abuse. Everyone had viewed him as crazy. On numerous occasions, cars full of people would head to his family home and patronize him. Don't. Oh, people are the worst. They'd come driving in my driveway at all times of night and go, Bob, we'd want to go Bigfoot hunting, he said. It wasn't long before his wife also started to fall victim to abuse. My wife was a teller at a savings and loan institution. Of course, she was sitting right there, and public would come and the public would come in and make smart remarks. Gosh darn it, dude. This went on and on until she would come home crying. She'd say, I'm not tough enough. A couple times we were going to split up over this. The problem only became worse, and Gimlin found himself isolated from the outside world. Damn. Recalling a conversation with prominent Canadian Bigfoot researcher John Green, Gimlin admitted to understanding why people had been acting the way they had. I can understand why they don't believe in it, because I didn't believe it either, he said. But I saw one, and I know what I saw, and I know it wasn't a man in a suit. It couldn't have been. The constant abuse would take a toll on Gimlin, who was faced with the conundrum of standing by his footage and being labeled crazy, or staying quiet and having people think the footage was fake. One of the most seething criticisms came from Greg Long, the author of The Making of Bigfoot. I'm going to be blunt with you, Long told Outside Online. I consider Bob Gimlin a liar, and I think he's a con artist. Oh my gosh. The author suggests anyone claiming to have seen Bigfoot is just trying to make a myth a reality. Wow. I mean, that can't be completely it, guy. You can't be. That's like as skeptical as someone. It's like the horseshoe theory, right? Just not believing in anything or believing in everything. Those are extremes. It's the same. It's probably not either. Isn't the truth? They need it to be real, he said. They are driven emotionally. I believe to find Bigfoot. I had a student who was not driven emotionally at all. One of the smartest mother effers I ever met in my life. A kid had autism, so like he worked with me because I'm a special education teacher, whatever. But he was so what amazed me about him was he memorized every single creature in prehistoric times. Very skeptical about everything. Very like, I loved talking to him about paranormal stuff. He'd always prove me wrong and tell me why like something probably isn't real. So I never thought he would believe in Bigfoot. So when Bigfoot came up, and he was a firm believer, it rocked my world. And his argument, and he showed me this YouTube video that I have not been able to find since. It's like a mythical YouTube video to me now. But anywho, because there's so many Sasquatch videos, this being one of them, clouding. Anywho, the video I watched talked about how like it would evolutionarily it could make sense because creatures see in like a whole different perspective or plane of reality than we do. If a creature is really adapted to nature and moves really fast, its subjective time is a lot slower. So Bigfoot would be one of those creatures that can sense us coming from a long ways away and can disappear just like that. Camouflage, it's really easy to trick the human eye. So the video just went into all that and how like the evolution of this creature could have happened. So anyways, Bigfoot, it out there. And I feel really bad for Bob Gimlin having to face up against critics who would just call anyone who's seen a Bigfoot a liar and is just emotionally invested, which is like, gosh, dude, I don't know. I mean, could be, but probably not. Anywho, while his hometown might not have been responsive to the recorded footage, over the past 49 years, a community of believers have embraced the belief that Bigfoot is real. Running conventions across the globe, these people trade evidence gathering techniques. Let's see. Oh, nice. After decades of hiding, Gimlin was roped into attending the 2003 Willow Creek International Bigfoot Symposium. And it was here he found what he had been looking for all these years. Yay! It's not a fairy tale to them, it's serious business, he said. When I met those people down there, they accepted me with what you call open arms. Yes, indeed, sir. Feeling comfortable, Gimlin addressed the conference with anecdotes of his encounter with Bigfoot. There wasn't a sound in the room while I was talking. He said, "Oh, I thought I could really believe this. This is almost like seeing Bigfoot. God, I feel like I was 10 feet tall. Oh, yay." Today, Gimlin, so maybe he doesn't regret it. Oh, there's a happy ending here. Today, Gimlin lives a life of a retired rancher, spending his days riding his horse and taking care of his property. However, he still finds time to appear at conventions across the country, telling the story of his and Patterson's encounter to congregations of the faithful, which is often met with standing ovation. Don't call us congregations of the faithful. It makes it sound like a religion, you nut. Ugh. But whatever. They want to talk to me. They want to tell me about their experience, he said. This turned my whole life around. Woohoo! So this was an article from Outside Magazine. I'm reading it from news.com by Matthew Dunn. News.com AU. But yeah, okay, cool. So awesome. So awesome little aside about the Patterson Gimlin tape. But still, we still haven't answered our question. Is he Bob Gimlin? Bigfoot. Let's get to his Wikipedia. Because that was still several years ago. I hope he's still alive. But that's awesome. He was just living as a retired rancher. Okay, come on, dude. I'm gonna start thinking it's... Okay. Dude, I think Gimlin's still alive. That is awesome. What? That's so cool. Oh my gosh. Oh, I thought... Man, I'm such a dummy. I thought he died. Because the Wikipedia is not saying he's dead. Okay, come on, AI. Okay, yes, okay. Yes, okay, dude. Woohoo! Oh, dude, man, and he's in Man versus Bigfoot in 2021. What is that about? Oh, wow, he stars in and he's in a thriller movie about Bigfoot. Oh, we gotta watch this stuff, dude. He's an actor now? That's so cool. Okay, so Bobby Gims is still alive and kicking. Let's get a picture of him. So Bob Gimlin, people. The man, the myth, the legend. Oh, I love that. All right. So, oh, and he's got a... Oh, dang, he's looking good. Okay, so this is Bobby. Old Bob Gimlin, still alive, which really made my day. I didn't know. I thought he had passed away because I'm a cynical old fart. But awesome that he is still alive. And the Bigfoot tape is absolutely real. I believe Bobby. But let's get back to it. So that was the Patterson Gimlin film. Unfortunately, he got a lot of ridicule, but now we know Bob Gimlin found happiness, which really just makes my whole entire Thursday. I'll tell you what. Okay, intriguingly, the two most historically significant Bigfoot incidents, Crew's first find in 1958 and the Patterson film in 1967, took place near each other at Bluff Creek, California. The sets of footprints from both events show similar but not identical creatures were involved. Unfortunately, as the years have seen copies of these two sets of prints mass copied, Hoaxers have employed plaster casts of these genuine tracks to create some confusing hoaxes throughout the United States and Canada. Boo hoaxers! Most tracks of Pacific Northwest Bigfoot, however, show distinctive forensic creatures that to investigators indicate they are not fakes. The occurrence of tracks in remote, seldom traveled areas also argues against the hoax hypothesis. Other evidence consists of feces and hair, samples associated with sightings or with other indications of Bigfoot's recent passage. Some of these have been identified and linked with human beings, known animals. In a few cases, the samples seem to resist such identification. In one analysis by Tom Slick, sponsored, Tom Slick, a rich dude back in the day who loved sponsoring expeditions to find monsters, RIP, sponsored Bigfoot expedition, fecal matter was found to contain parasites that were unknown, thus indicating they were from an unknown animal. If Bigfoot is out there, it is almost certainly a relative of ours. Sanderson classified these creatures as neogiants, giant unknown primates, an analysis echoed by Lauren Coleman, Mark A. Hall, and Patrick Hugh, big boys of cryptozoology. The truly huge Bigfoot is what researcher Hall calls a true giant. Grover Krantz theorizes that Bigfoot is an example of a relict population of a long extinct Ice Age giant ape-like creature, Gigantopithecus. In Big Footprints 1992, Krantz argues that no new name is needed for Bigfoot since the animal responsible for Bigfoot sightings is already known. Though thought extinct, Krantz holds that we in fact have footprints of a Gigantopithecus here in North America. Bigfooters, those currently hunting Bigfoot with guns and cameras, accept that Gigantopithecus argument because Krantz's thoughts on the matter were widely disseminated in the 1980s and early 1990s. Yeah, could be. Could be. However, with the population of a new field guide to Bigfoot, with the publication of a new field guide to Bigfoot and similar creatures by Lauren Coleman and Patrick Hugh, Lauren Coleman, you're writing this book right now, though. The idea that Bigfoot may be, he's talking about his own book, the idea that Bigfoot may be a man-sized hominid named Paranthropus is gaining new attention. The notion was first proposed in scientific journals in 1971 with anthropologically oriented cryptozoologist Jordan Strasberg. I feel like that Kevin James meme that's been going around right now. Is that his name? The King or Queens guy? That's like Lauren Coleman being like, or it could be Paranthropus. This guy has this really good new book about it, and it's his book. Gordon Strassenberg wrote that Bigfoot would be found to be related to Paranthropus. He proposed that the name Paranthropus be specifically used for the Pacific Northwest Bigfoot because of the apparent sagittal crest of the Bigfoot in the Patterson film. This candidate is getting a new look. If its existence is ever proven, and nothing short of an actual specimen will satisfy most scientists, it would at the very least provide revolutionary insights into human evolution. All these prehistoric fossil primates may have affinities to Bigfoot because of certain features, such as the overall size of a Gigantopithecus and the body size and crest of the head of a Paranthropus. But until a body is scientifically examined, the riddle of Bigfoot will continue as one of cryptozoology's most famous enigmas. So that's Bigfoot and cryptozoology A to Z. And this Lauren Coleman, typical Lolo, right? He is very he's a body guy. I don't like being a body guy, and I say that being like we need a body of a Bigfoot. Because I don't want people out there shooting one. I don't, and it's like, hey, if you don't want to believe in Bigfoot, that's totally cool, man. We don't have to prove it with a body. Why do that instead of just like letting it chill out there? Because going down to hunt one, down to kill one, there's literally no reason. We're not going to eat its meat. We just want to prove that it's real. I don't know. Look, I don't know. I just don't like it. Next up, we are going to take a journey through Unexplained's story of Bigfoot. Now, will it be different? Who knows? Will it have some of the same stories? Most likely. We're going to compare and see what is added and what's left out from a purely cryptozoological kind of serious look at it. I mean, they're all serious. All these books take it seriously. Gimlin would appreciate it. To a more, well, just like something that accepts a wider variety of theories, right? Because in the end, Cryptozoology A to Z was purely on the stance of this is a creature that is a relict, a population of an older primate or relative to us humans, instead of, you know, a creature that's also evolved and become more evolved as time goes on, but is also super old. In my head, Bigfoot is like really old and part of like the nature spirit to help protect Earth, especially around certain resources where it might be sighted. Who knows though? Let's get into it. Unexplained Sasquatch. Woo! Forget my theories. What do I know? What do I know, you crazy man? Okay. The old Big Papa Bigfoot. He calls him Sasquatch. In this book, he's trying to be more proper. Interesting, Mr. And so this is, oh, again, this book is by, hold on. Let me get there first. Okay. This is by Jerome Clark, who helped Lauren Coleman write Cryptozoology A to Z. Interesting. He's an encyclopedia writer, but I mean, this is not a critique at all. I just, for some reason, I find this interesting because I'm a loser. In the Cryptozoology A to Z, he classifies it. He has Bigfoot under Bigfoot and doesn't really have a Sasquatch section. But in the Encyclopedia of the Unexplained, new edition, he has it listed as Sasquatch with Bigfoot in parentheticals. So interesting, right? Is that just a creative choice? Or is there something more to it, Mr. Clark? The background. If Sasquatch is a real animal or proto-human, it is not, it need hardly be said, a recent resident of the northwestern wilderness. Thus, students of the creature have sought evidence of its presence prior to the 20th century with ambiguous success. That's what I was talking about. Like if it was cited in 58, it's been cited before and way before. In their attempt to give Sasquatch a long recorded history, Sasquatch proponents often cite American Indian traditions concerning oversized woodland bipeds, but usually such beliefs are taken out of context and are selectively reported. The most popular proto-Sasquatch candidate is the Wetiko, or Wendigo, known to the Algonquin Indians of the northern forest. Wetikos were cannibalistic giants with supernatural powers, one of which was the ability to possess people and turn them into Wetikos. Not surprisingly, it's like zombies. Not surprisingly, much anthropological as opposed to amateur Bigfootological speculation on the roots of this belief focuses on psychiatric disorders. Comparable monsters loom large in a number of North American Indian mythologies. They warn members of the dangers of violating taboos and serve other more complex functions within tribal society. If Sasquatch lurks in here somewhere, its presence is fairly well disguised. Though occasional details and otherwise non-resonant narratives are intriguing, most of the time, however, the woodland giants disqualify themselves from Sasquatch status by either being too aggressive and often cannibalistic, or conversely being too civilized and intelligent. Well, maybe it's something down the middle. Not all Sasquatch are made the same, bud. Trying to extract a tiny truth from the vast mythological fabric is a hopeless exercise. More productively, we can turn to early published reports that first possibly and later certainly refer to Sasquatch. In 1870, a correspondent to California newspaper Antioch Ledger 1870. So we're going back before 58. So that's fun. So this was in a report from the Antioch Ledger. It reported that a year before, he had seen a gorilla or wild man, or whatever you choose to call it, in the bush. Its head, he wrote, appeared to be set on the creature's shoulders without a neck, a detail echoed by virtually every modern witness. On the other hand, the correspondent mentioned a decidedly uncharacteristic anatomical feature, very short legs. If this animal existed outside the writer's imagination, it may have well been a gorilla. It could also have been a chimpanzee. Interesting. But that lines up with the reports of early skunk ape. Early skunk ape was mainly reported as a chimpanzee-like creature, and it was only later that people started seeing, or it was more widely reported that people started seeing the Bigfoot-like one. The next known contemporary account appears in 1901. It appears in the 1901 issue of The Colonist, a Victoria, British Columbia newspaper, which tells of the experience of a lumberman working on Vancouver Island near Campbell River. Mike King was alone because his Native American packers refused to accompany him for fear of the Sasquatch they said that lived in the forest. Late in the afternoon, he observed the man-beast washing roots in the water. Suddenly, aware of King, the creature cried out and scooted up a hill, stopping at one point to look over its shoulder at him. The witness described it as covered with reddish-brown hair, and his arms were particularly long and used freely in climbing and in bush running, while the trail showed a distinct human foot, but with a phenomenally long and spreading toes. Wow. Early sightings. Interesting. Then, in December 14th, 1904, the colonists related a sighting by 4 credible witnesses who saw a Sasquatch-like creature on Vancouver Island, and in 1907, it told of the abandonment of an Indian village, its inhabitants frightened into flight by a monkey-like wild man who appears on the beach near Bishop's Cove on the British Columbia coast at night and who howls in an unearthly fashion. By the early decades of the century, residents of Western Canada were well aware of the hairy giants being called Sasquatches. Another intriguing anecdote concerns an attack by Bigfoot creatures on a party of miners in the Mount St. Helens Lewis River area of southwestern Washington. The attack of Ape Valley, baby. The episode begins one evening in July 1924. 2 of the miners, already unnerved by weeks of strange whistling and thumping sounds emanating from a couple of nearby ridges, spotted a 7-foot-tall ape-like creature and fired on it. They fled to a cabin and with 2 other men endured a night-long assault, including thrown rocks and a concentrated effort to smash open the door by a number of the creatures. The Portland Oregonian reporters who came to the scene later found giant footprints. The spot where the episode occurred was thereafter named Ape Canyon, and so it was called to this day. In 1967, one of the participants, Fred Beck, and his son published a book, I Fought the Ape Men of Mount St. Helens, recalling the event. I gotta get that book too. We gotta get it. Gosh, that's probably so interesting, that firsthand account. In 1982, an interview with the Vancouver newspaper, Rant Mullins, 86, claimed responsibility for the episode. On their way home from a fishing trip, he reported as a joke he and his uncle rolled some rocks down over the ridge and then got out of there fast. Well, but I mean, what about all the sightings? Were you dressed up as a 7-foot-tall Bigfoot too? Were you the one out there whistling and howling for the weeks leading up to the attack? That's my thing. But anywho, from that, he said, the hairy ape stories emerged. It is, however, easier to believe that Beck and the others invented the tale out of whole cloth than to credit the idea that this simple act participated the complex series of events that comprise of the recorded incident. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't just the rocks. These events include repeated sightings, some at a distance of no more than a few feet, of Bigfoot creatures. Beck was dead by the time that Mullins came forward. Oh, convenient. But the witness's son, Ronald Beck, rejected that as impossible. The notion that the incident could have been caused by a common hoax or even an uncommon one. As for his father's honesty, he added, I was close to my father, and believe me, his account is straight and true. I once had the privilege of hearing him and another man, one of the other miners, discuss their mutual 1924 experience. Now that is a conversation you want to be a part of. The occurrences of tracks in remote, seldom traveled areas also argues against the hoax hypothesis. James A. Hukin of the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife reported finding Sasquatch tracks, as well as a less direct but nonetheless suggestive evidence in remote, almost inaccessible regions of the Cascade Mountains. From his observations, Hukin, a biologist, concluded that a species of giant bipedal primate weighing up to 800 pounds and standing as tall as 8 feet and known as Sasquatch does in fact exist. Its diet is probably omnivorous, with feeding habits similar to those of bears, grubbing for roots, larvae, and etc. It searches for rodents in stumps, logs, and rock slides. It might cache meat for winter use. Other evidence consists of feces and hair samples associated either with sightings or with other indications of a Bigfoot's recent passage. Some of these have been identified and linked with human beings or known animals. In a few cases, the samples seem to resist such identification. There also have been analysis of recordings of alleged Bigfoot cries. One notable example is a recording made on October 21st, 1972, at 8,500 feet altitude in Northern California's high Sierras, where a number of sightings have been logged. That night, investigators recorded a series of moans, whines, growls, grunts, and whistles. Two electronic specialists, one from the University of Wyoming and the other from Rockwell International, conducted an extensive analysis that led them to the conclusion that the sounds emanated from more than one speaker, one or more of which is of larger physical size than the average human male. The formant frequencies found were clearly lower than for human data, and their distribution does not indicate that they were a product of human vocalizations and tape speed alteration. Then, of course, there are the numerous sightings by now in the low thousands from all manner of human beings. Though those sightings amount to incredible claims and claim that every witness without exception is lying or deluded, is not a little incredible in itself. Yeah, that's the horseshoe theory thing, right? It's like not everyone can be seeing something fake. Not everyone can be just hallucinating or lying, just like not everyone can actually be seeing something. It's down the middle. The only animal a person of average judgment and perception is likely to mistake for a Sasquatch is a bear, or bears are bipedal only for brief periods of time. And no knowledgeable observer would confuse bear tracks with Sasquatch tracks. Yet the idea that such creatures with relict hominids or great apes share the North American continent with us is indeed a fantastic one. One does not have to be a rigid, unbending dogmatist to resist it in the absence of a body or living specimen. This sort of skepticism, eminently defensible, is one thing. Dogmatic denial, quite another. In the meantime, it seems safe to say that if the forests of the Northwest do harbor these extraordinary animals, they cannot remain hidden from us forever. Well, I think they could, because I think they're popping in and out of existence and in and out of realities. The Field Guide North American Cryptids has my favorite feature in all the books on cryptids we've checked out. This is what we're reading now, and that is the stats, the vital stats right here, right? So check it out. Let's get in. So come on, zoom in for me, baby. At the bottom, you see the rating symbol here. This is what I was talking about before I interrupted myself with my own thought. That is 4 Jersey Devils. Sorry, it's a little blurry. I'll put it up there a little more clear. That's 4 Jersey Devils out of 5. And when encountering this monster, that's how this author rates beast encounters. Not saying it's dangerous, but saying your chances of encountering a Bigfoot are really high if you go out in the woods with the right attitude and you're going to the right places. So the vital stats, let's start off there with the old Bigfoot. Distinguishing features: foul stench, huge feet with 5 toes, height 6 to 12 feet tall, weight 200 to 2,000 pounds, Range and habitat, the forests of Idaho, Washington, Northern California, Oregon, and British Columbia, collectively known as the Pacific Northwest. Population size, unknown, but presumably less than 2,000. Diet, omnivore. Behavior, generally shy and peaceful, Bigfoot usually remains hidden from humans, but can be provoked to violence in extreme circumstances. It spends most of its time foraging for food, but has kidnapped or attacked humans on occasion. Source, Native American mythology, American folklore, and cryptozoology. Now, encountering a Bigfoot, 4 Jersey Devils out of 5. So your chances are you're going to see one, but you got to have the right tune, because Bigfoot can feel those vibes coming a mile away. If you're looking to capture or kill, it's going to run away. Let's see here. Okay, good. Okay. The most well-known and widely recognized of North America's monsters, Bigfoot, is the quintessential hairy humanoid. The creature is often referred to by the Native American term Sasquatch. That's not really a Native American term, we learned from the other books. Roughly translated as hairy giant, which describes the towering monster to perfection. Bigfoot shares all the traits of the typical hairy humanoid, but it is most noted for its large footprints, which prominently display 5 thick toes. As Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, first appeared in Native American tales long before the arrival of early settlers, by the late 1700s, explorers, lumberjacks, trappers, and hunters traveling through the Pacific Northwest also began reporting sightings of the hairy ape-like creature. Yes, more old sightings. I love learning about these. The most widely publicized early Bigfoot encounter occurred in 1884 when several men collared a stocky, so this is a new story, we haven't heard this one yet. So apparently in 1884, several men caught one. Several men collared a stocky beast along the Fraser River outside of Yale, British Columbia. Local papers dubbed the monster Jacko and described him as a brawny humanoid with ape-like features. No one was able to determine Jacko's true identity or origin, and the creature was eventually entrusted to the care of George Telbury. Telbury alternatively vowed to tour England with the beast or sell him to the Barnum and Bailey circus, but Jacko eventually disappeared, and his ultimate fate remains unknown. Hopefully you survived, Jacko. Glad you didn't get sold to the circus. It's possible that he was murdered, as his body was unceremoniously discarded, or perhaps he was set free by Telbury. Ooh, let's hope. Who, it has been reported, did develop a bond with the monster. Yeah, please tell me you set it free. After the disappearance of Jacko, reported sightings of Bigfoot continued sporadically until the 1950s, when a resurgence in Sasquatch-related incidents attracted the attention of numerous cryptozoologists and professional monsterologists. These researchers have since managed to amass a vast trove of data, including hair samples, perfect footprint casts, audio recordings, and the creature's unearthly howls and shrieks, hundreds of first-hand reports, and rare photographs. Possibly the most important and controversial piece of Bigfoot evidence is the Patterson-Gimlin film, which allegedly captures a live Bigfoot on the move and in full color. The film was recorded on October 20th, 1967, when 2 trackers named Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin stumbled across a female Bigfoot near Buff Creek, California. Again, this goes on. We already learned about the Patterson-Gimlin film. We're going to fast forward this part here. Bloop, blop, blop. We know that it was filmed. They took it. It's been controversial ever since. Both Patterson and Gimlin still stand by the film. Patterson passed away in 1972. What's interesting here, what we learn about Patterson, is Patterson really wanted to mount an expedition to find the Yeti and to also find Bigfoot, but unfortunately he passed away before he can do that. Maybe when he sold the rights to the film, like when we learned in the article we read about Gimlin earlier, maybe that was a desperate attempt to get like respect or funding from another scientist in order to go research Yeti, but who knows. Yeah, and this also just mentions the theory at the end here, how Patterson and Gimlin could have bought the suit from somebody. People believe that. Or they were the victims of a hoax themselves, or someone was waiting for them in a suit to scare people, and that's what they saw, which always could be. But I don't know. From what I've read, I lean more towards believing old Patty and Gimli. But Patterson-Gimlin film, why it's mentioned in each of the three, this is the most famous Bigfoot sighting. It propels Bigfoot right into the mainstream media. However, despite the wealth of information gathered from the thousands of sightings, Bigfooters are still uncertain about the many monsters' habits. For example, it is not known whether big feet have any social structure. The majority of encounters involve only Bigfoot, but in a small percentage of cases, the monsters have been observed in family units consisting of 3 or 4 individuals. Because of this contradictory data, some Bigfooters believe the monster to be a solitary wanderer, while others contend that the creatures maintain a small tribal society. Okay. Bigfoot researchers are also divided on the issue of whether or not the monster... Yo, morning, Sarvi. How you doing, brother? Hope you're doing well. I'm freaking. We're learning about Bigfoot today because there was that recent sighting in Colorado. We're about to wrap up on the reading end, but there was that recent sighting in Colorado of the Bigfoot from the couple on the train, and I'm so bummed. Someone came by in the chat. A buddy named Igor came by, and he was gonna tell a story, but I missed when he was trying to get my attention, and then he just bailed on the chat. Man, I was so excited. I missed him though. We were this close. He told me I sucked, and then he left. I was like, no, come back, Igor. I was just reading, my dude. I want to hear your story still. So hopefully we get a story later. However... Oh, wait, we already read that? You know what I'm starting to believe, though? No, I've read these 3 books a few times. I've done my research. We need some new research. But I've read these. It kind of feels like the guy who wrote the North American Guide to Monsters read these 2 books and then wrote this. But he does have other things in here that show me he did maybe some more research, like the theory about Bigfoots being in a small tribal society, or maybe they're solitary wanderers. I mean, we know there's possibly solitary wanderers, but the small tribal society, that's an interesting nugget. Oh, you saw the video from the train. Okay, yeah. Well, dude, the video from the train, how gnarly was that? Right? I mean, I love how it just kind of goes and sits down in the bushes and then it melts into the background so easy, like with super good. That's like that camouflage, you know, makes me think about that. Okay. Native American wait. Bigfoot researchers are also divided on the issue of whether or not the monster poses a threat to humans. Some view the creature as a gentle giant, but other researchers believe that Bigfoot, like humans, is prone to emotional outbursts and can easily be motivated towards violence. Now, here, my take on that is that there's just 2 different, it's like, and this is the wild one, but I think there's like Bigfoot, which we know he's like, big and gentle, and then there's the other ones, his cousins, that we've learned about that typically have 3 toes. Yeah, yes, Sarvi, I am with you 100%, because if Bigfoot is real, it would have to be so highly intelligent to be able to avoid us. And why would it stick around with us at all? Because from the moment we've seen one, we've been trying to capture or kill it just to prove it exists. So these creatures would know, like, okay, don't F with humans at all. Don't be anywhere near them. So I feel like they'd be very good at camouflage, and they'd have such a natural intelligence, and that would be so valuable to us. Because they look at the woods and they could use all the plants for all their like natural properties. I believe they could probably like heal or keep themselves healthy that way. Yeah, right? That'd be crazy. No, I feel you. I feel you, Sarvi. It's hard to come down either way on belief or not. But yes. But back to the 3-toed thing. I do think if the other ones are real too, they are different entities and not Bigfoot when you encounter something that's more aggressive. I think the most the Bigfoot would do, the stories from my point of view, the story most Bigfoot do, knock some wood, scream a little bit, throw some rocks at you. Native American stories about Sasquatch suggest that Bigfoot is not entirely peaceful. In the Yakima tradition, for example, Sasquatch was an outcast who became an evil spirit known as Kwai-Lin-Me, the Devourer. Ooh, that's a sick name. The monster's hatred for humanity twisted its appearance and made it extremely dangerous. The Hoopa Indians also called the beast by a terrifying name, Oma. And remember, Oma was mentioned in Cryptozoology A to Z. As being the California, what Native Americans in California referred to as Bigfoot. Oma, the demon of the wilderness. Sasquatch was also greatly feared by Native Americans for its tendency to kidnap humans. In 1871, so we get a difference. We get another kidnapping story, not just Albert Ostman. In 1871, 17-year-old Stephanie Long, while away from her village searching for firewood, was abducted by a male Bigfoot. She was taken to a hidden cave where the creature lived with its elderly parents and held captive by the beast for over a year. She eventually took ill, and her captor reluctantly allowed her return to her family. Well, that's nice of her captor. However, she eventually took ill, and her captor reluctantly allowed her to return to her family. Although a high percentage of abductees are female, women are not the only victims of the hairy kidnappers. In the summer of 1924, woodsman Albert Ostman, and we know this story all too well, he was at the Toba Inlet in British Columbia, and he was carried away by a family of Sasquatches. Let's see if this story elaborates any more here. And he was surprised. Remember, he found himself, he was the family of a guest of Bigfoot's in a secluded valley where he remained for the next several days. Now, here's a new bit. During his stay, the Big Feet were extremely curious about Ostman and his belongings, but they never tried to harm him in any way. Due to the family's hospitality, Ostman began to sense that he had been kidnapped to breed with the Bigfoot's young... Oh my gosh. Of course he would think this. No, the Bigfoots don't want to make love to you. I'm glad that was left out of the other two books for good reason. To escape, Ostman fired his rifle. Oh, and different story about how he escaped too. The other two books say that Ostman escaped because the Bigfoot had a sniff of his tobacco and was like, ugh. But this book says to escape, Ostman fired his rifle into the air, startling the family, then bolted from the valley. Big Feet do not stop simply at kidnapping humans, and the notion that this monster occasionally turns to humans for food is extremely common in Native American accounts of the beast. While exploring the British Columbia coast in 1792, old sighting, naturalist Jose Marino Monzino interviewed locals who were terrified of the Matlocks, a large hairy humanoid with huge feet, sharp teeth, and hooked claws, known to devour any humans it captured. As recently as 1854, the tribes living near Mount St. Helens claimed that their Sasquatch neighbors dined on human flesh, and the California tribes living near Elk Creek similarly feared a cannibalistic Sasquatch known locally as the Seatco, who carried a staff made of human shin bones. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. One of the first written accounts of murderous Bigfoot appears in the Theodore Roosevelt's book. Oh, whoa, okay. I didn't know old Teddy Roosevelt had a Bigfoot encounter. Oh, wait, no, okay. In his book, there's a story that he heard of a hunter. Okay. One of the first written accounts of a murderous Bigfoot appears in Theodore Roosevelt's 1893 book, Wilderness Hunter. In that tome, Roosevelt relates the tragic tale of a hunter who was stolen from his campsite at the head of Idaho's Wisdom River in the early 1800s. The kidnapper was reported to be a hairy monster with a terrible stench. Shortly after the hunter disappeared, his corpse was discovered nearby amid several giant footprints. His neck had been broken and his throat had been savagely torn out. Although such vicious murders are rare, since the 1800s, there have been dozens of reported Bigfoot attacks on humans. The most dramatic assault was the Ape Canyon affair of 1924. Ape Canyon? That year, a group of miners working near the valley near Mount St. Helens, Washington, reportedly shot and wounded a Bigfoot. After sunset, several ape-like creatures standing over 7 feet tall descended into the valley and rained stones and boulders on the miner's cabin. Just like we read before in the other story, right? So it's corroborating that. They both Cryptozoology A to Z and Field Guide North American Monsters talk about this Ape Canyon assault, which is my favorite Bigfoot encounter. Despite the wealth of evidence casting Bigfoot in a negative light, individual big feet have also exhibited a more benign aspect. They have been known to rescue animals in danger and on rare occasions aid humans, lost or injured in the woods. Fortunate is the man or woman who happens to befriend one of these monsters, though through some twist of fate, as they are extremely loyal and will take great pains to repay any debt. Indicative of the creature's fealty is the story of Native American fishermen who encountered an emaciated Bigfoot near Two Lake, California in 1897. The man took pity on the monster and gave the beast his recent catch, despite his own suffering appetite. A few weeks after the encounter, the fisherman awoke to find several fresh deer skins neatly arranged outside his cabin. In the months that followed, the nocturnal visitor left prodigious amounts of firewood, pelts, and berries and other fruit. Eventually, the gifts ceased, and the fisherman came to believe that his silent, hairy friend had finally left the area. However, years later, the fisherman was bitten by a rattlesnake and fell unconscious in the forest. Miraculously, he awoke a few hours later to find himself being shouldered. No! All right, pausing the story, getting back in the tub. But this is just what we were talking about. If this story is true, this story we're reading of the hunter who encountered a Bigfoot, helped it out, and then that Bigfoot helped him out in the woods, like literally got deer skins for him and gave him food and repaid the debt and gave him firewood, that proves a deep natural intelligence to know that, like, oh, humans use firewood for fires. Like, to skin a deer and then know that the deer skin is good for warmth and to give that as a gift. That's huge intelligence. So if this story is true, we got super smart humanoids out there, people. And that's nice that they're willing to help if you help them. Also, what we're going to read, I got interrupted reading that part of the story. Okay, yeah, we're going to do that right now. Oh, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Sloop. Okay. Okay, so here we go. However, years later, the fisherman was bitten by a rattlesnake and fell unconscious in the forest. Miraculously, he awoke a few hours later to find himself being shouldered by 3 large big feet. He looked to his wound and saw that the snake bite had been neatly wrapped in moss that neutralized the poison. The monsters returned the man to his cabin, and the old debt paid in full disappeared into the forest forever. So that story I love, because if that is true, that absolutely proves the deep natural intelligence of the big feet, that they know just instinctively what wonders of medicine plants hold. I believe that if we understood nature in the perfect way, we'd be able to find cures for anything naturally, and that exists in the natural world. Anything under the sun, can be cured by something else under the sun. And I believe Bigfoot has that knowledge just instinctively because it lives purely in the woods, if it's out there and it's real. Purely in the reality of nature, whatever that may be. Sadly, Bigfoot may have much more cause to fear humans than we have reasons to fear this hairy giant. As a direct result of man's interference with the environment of the Pacific Northwest, Bigfoot must now contend with numerous threats to its habitat. The largest danger to Bigfoot's survival is the lumber industry's wanton destruction of the old-growth forests of the Pacific Northwest, which the monster depends upon for food and shelter. This habitat is further plagued by such man-made ills as acid rain, chemical dumping erosion, and landfills. Finally, the monster must also face armed humans seeking the beast for fame and fortune. Although usually ill-equipped, such monster hunters force local Bigfeet to migrate, and many of those monsters may lose homes and reliable food sources in the process. A few local governments have taken steps to protect Bigfoot. In 1969, Washington's Skamania County passed an ordinance that protected the wanton murder of the bipedal hairy creatures, thank goodness. Whatcom County, Washington, and areas of California, Oregon, and Pennsylvania and Arkansas have also have ordinances protecting Bigfoot and other hairy humanoids. There are some cryptozoologists like Grover Krantz, boo, who advocate for killing a Bigfoot, but I don't think that needs to be done. And Bigfoot has been declared an endangered species in Siskiyou County, California. That's right. Unfortunately, woot woot on California and Washington for passing laws to protect Bigfoot. Unfortunately, Bigfoot will only completely be protected once its existence has been proven and accepted by the federal government. While the Army Corps of Engineers once listed Sasquatch as part of the natural fauna of Washington, tight, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services has refused to officially include the creature in the endangered species list until concrete evidence in the form of a live or dead Bigfoot can be obtained. One of the most widely publicized attempts to meet the federal government's strict requirements occurred in 1969 when North American Wildlife Research of Eugene, Oregon sought to capture the beast in a 10-foot steel cage. Not gonna work. It would be able to notice steel. Steel gives off a vibe, dude. The cage, which was placed near the site of a recent Bigfoot activity, was kept baited from 1974 to 1980, but it failed to produce anything more than a bear and a wandering hippie. The baits were eventually removed, and the trap was left to rust in the forest, where it remains to this day. Can we picture that big rusting cage right now? It's such an eerie. I feel like it gives you such an eerie feeling to just picture this big rusting steel cage out in the middle of the woods. Numerous expeditions have also set out in search of the Bigfoot, and these too have fared poorly. In 1960, the wealthy oil man Tom Slick, baby, organized the Pacific Northwest Bigfoot Expedition, the most formidable group of Sasquatch seekers ever assembled. Most of the men involved were seasoned trackers, and many had spent time in Tibet searching for the Yeti, a creature often considered to be one of Bigfoot's far-flung relatives. Nevertheless, the group could not find Bigfoot. Slick, who was the unifying force behind the group, died in a plane crash in 1962. Bummer. The Pacific Northwest Bigfoot Expedition disbanded soon after. In 1970, Robert W. Morgan tried to continue Slick's work when he formed the American Yeti Expedition, which consisted of an archaeologist, a cinematographer, at least one psychic, several biology students, and George Harrison, the editor of National Wildlife, partially funded by the National Wildlife Federation. Morgan and his crew traveled to Mount St. Helens region, where they employed jeeps, night vision goggles, and other advanced gadgetry in their quest to find the creature. Morgan found no sign of the creature, and in desperation resorted to baiting his traps with a nude female volunteer. Oh my god, dude. That's not gonna work. That's not what Sasquatch wants, you fart. Eventually, after spending over $50,000, in his failed pursuit of the beast, Morgan was forced to dissolve the expedition, as to be expected. The most recent failure in the quest for Bigfoot, man, so harsh, but I guess failures in quotes, so that makes it like quote unquote failure. And the quest for Bigfoot involved a research project led by Peter Byrne, who had played a significant role in Tom Slick's 1960 expedition, and is notorious for being one of the few well-funded Bigfooters. Until recently, Byrne's Oregon-based Bigfoot research project was financed by the Academy of Applied Sciences. Oh, that's cool. Of Boston, and made use of a variety of technology ranging from the digital global positioning equipment to motion and heat sensors. The most important device in Byrne's possession, however, was a special biopsy dart, specifically designed to take small blood and hair tissue samples without injuring a Bigfoot. It's not going to work. The Bigfoot, if it's real, could sense these things and will go away from them and find ways to conceal itself. Byrne reasoned that the data gained from these darts would have provided viable DNA samples, which when combined with the wealth of sightings and footprints, could conclusively prove the monster's existence. Unfortunately, Byrne and his team never managed to find Bigfoot, much less shoot the creature with a biopsy dart. As of this writing, the Bigfoot Research Project has been dissolved. Aww. Despite the difficulties inherent in the search for Bigfoot, numerous hikers and hunters do encounter the creature each year. Therefore, Bigfoot should be one of the principal subjects for budding monsterologists. If you decide to seek Bigfoot, limit your search to the Pacific Northwest, specifically those areas with prodigious amounts of rain. Plan your expedition for the fall months, as the bulk of sightings occur from August to October. In addition, conduct most of your research at dusk, dawn, or in the dead of night, when Bigfoot is most active. Trekking through the forest is the most successful method for spotting a Bigfoot, but be sure to visit caves and lava tubes as well. Be certain to study riverbanks and patches of mud for Bigfoot's footprints, which can be identified by their incredible size, a lack of claw marks, and a distinct big toe, and always carry a small quantity of gypsum cement to make a cast of any print you may find. Always have that pocket full of gypsum, baby. Also, have on hand tweezers, rubber gloves, and plastic containers for collecting hair samples. Novice hikers wary of venturing into the forest should drive along logging roads at night to catch Bigfoot in their headlights. During a sighting, remain motionless and attempt to observe the creature's appearance, actions, and general demeanor. Always remain entirely passive unless the monster exhibits aggression. Flee from a violent Bigfoot with great haste. When peaceful big feet are encountered, offer flowers or food to establish a bond, which will allow for a closer study. Avoid sudden movements or loud noises, and always speak calmly. You gotta have the most chill buddy vibe you've ever chill buddy vibed in your whole life if you want to see a Bigfoot, I feel like. Or like actually have an encounter with one. Never convey fear, and if you wish to leave the area, do so by backing away slowly. Any attempts to photograph or film Bigfoot should be made at a great distance, as the camera might alarm or frighten or enrage the monster, especially if equipped with a flash. It should be noted that some big feet actually approach isolated cabins, trailer parks, and other abodes. If Bigfoot does come near your home, gently close all doors and windows and quiet dogs and children. Most important, do not feed the Bigfoot, as it will come to associate human dwellings with food and may return to kidnap loved ones or pets. But we know Bigfoot doesn't do that. If you're going to be kidnapped, well, Bigfoot does that deep in the woods, apparently. But Bigfoot doesn't come to your house to kidnap loved ones and pets. The folk monster does that, I believe. That's the one in Arkansas, right? Yeah, the folk monster is the one that was cited that apparently tried to kidnap a little baby and was seen with like a bloody dog under its arm. But that, my friends, is your Sunrise Book Club for today. What shall we do next? I think now we're going to move ourselves on to play some games. But what game? That is the question. What game? Let's switch over to my big face screen while we figure that out. But thank you for joining me, folks. Hope you enjoyed learning about Bigfoot. Saturday, we're going to be learning about the origins of demonology and demonologists and where all the names of the hierarchy of demons came from. So that will be a fun Halloween special. We're going to learn about that lore. We'll continue reading the Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology. I just wanted to take a Bigfoot detour because that sighting got me all excited yesterday. So yeah, let's party.